everyone, this is Applicable Dave. Welcome to another episode of Who Talk. First things first, let me go ahead and show you my new shirt. It's pretty freaking cool. Has the faces of the Doctor right there. And this is in celebration for the 50th year anniversary. Woo! So if this is the first time tuning into the show, it's basically a show about Doctor Who, obviously. We talk about episode reviews, character reviews, fanfics, you name it. Anything about Doctor Who. It's amazing. So if you completely missed the last episode, go ahead and check out the annotation right over here. It's basically like an intro video to this. So today in this episode, we're going to be talking about an episode review. It's actually probably not the best season to do it, but you know, who cares? I loved it and I want to share that with you. It is the Christmas special of Doctor Who, the Snowmen. So, pretty awesome. Well, first and foremost, I want to talk about the intro, and the intro was amazing. Well, to be honest, the first time I saw it, I was like, what the what? They completely redid it. I remember when they had David Tennant's opening sequence, and it was amazing. I liked it, and then they changed it to season 5 and season 6, and part of season 7's opening title sequence, and it was like a little bit weird, but I kind of got used to it. I really liked it. And then this comes up, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. At first, I didn't like the theme music. It was a little bit different from the previous one, and the pace kind of moves around. But then I like it. I also like the sound effects that happens when you see Doctor Who and there's sparkles like it's pretty amazing. As far as the animation, it was a little bit different. Actually, it was a lot different. I'm so used to TARDIS just going through the time vortex and that's it. Then you have the actors' names and then the title. But now you have planets and galaxies and cosmos. It's a little bit overwhelming at first, but then I got used to it too. I love it. And I love how Matt Smith's face just appears out of nowhere. Very subtle. It's amazing. They definitely have the classic Doctor Who flavor mixed in with the title sequence, and I like it. It just goes to show that they're really preparing for the 50th year anniversary, which I'm really excited about. So let's go ahead and go through what I've noticed, and we'll probably talk about the characters and the story and just everything, and hopefully we'll get to a conclusion about this episode of Doctor Who. First, let's talk about the Doctor. The Doctor in the beginning is presented as a very darker Doctor, somebody who's broken, somebody who's detached from the world and detached from friends and whatnot. And so we see somebody who's broken, and you can see by the clothing and the shadowing. I like how they filmed it to where there's, you know, in the beginning there's a lot more shadow to the Doctor, and then towards the end you'll see, you know, he's like his normal state. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. If you recall the last time we left off Doctor Who, the Doctor suffered a major loss with his friends, the Pawns. We saw a very optimistic and bright and helpful Doctor, and when the situations happened where he lost his friends, he finally snapped and he had enough. So where we pick up, we see that the Doctor is damaged. This is the after effect of what happened, and so he's very closed off. He has that barrier, and what he's trying to do is isolate himself from the world and from friends and potential reasons to get hurt. And so he's doing that to protect himself. Because why? Because he is hurt. If you notice what he says in one part of the episode, he says, the universe doesn't care. He's basically given up. And you'll notice that the Doctor picks on Strax a lot in this episode. So some of you may be wondering, why is the Doctor acting like this? It's not like him. Remember, he's been hurt. And the easiest way to not get hurt again is by pushing friends away. But thankfully, as you progress through the episode, you'll see a dramatic change in the Doctor's demeanor, his character. You'll see a much brighter and a back to normal Doctor. I like the sequence when he looks into a mirror and he notices that his bow tie is a little bit crooked. And he didn't even notice that he put it on. And he says, old habits. And so that symbolizes the picture of how broken he is, how messed up he really is. It also shows that there's a glimmer of hope, or a spark of the old Doctor Who when he says, bow ties are cool. You see that energy and that joy that he once had coming back, and you'll see more and more of that as you progress through the episode. I like how they portrayed Vastra and Ginny being detectives. In fact, Dr. Simeon, who is the villain in this episode, refers to them as the veiled detective and her fatuous accomplice. Wow. I've always liked them in the previous episodes, and this is no exception. I mentioned earlier that Strax was being picked on a lot by the Doctor. He had his funny and goofy moments, like the situation with the memory worm, but I still believe that he was a great character, and he also was a key element in portraying the bitterness that the Doctor had when he basically, you can say that he took it out on this poor Sontaran. Let's talk about Clara for a little bit. Clara is a little bit hard to analyze. Her character is basically an enigma, and the more you get into the story, the more questions you have, and sometimes it gets kind of annoying, but towards the end it reveals a couple things. We know that Clara is a very spunky and very fiery girl that always has a comeback. Not so much like River Song, but I like the relationship or the interaction between her and the Doctor, and how she renders him lost for words, basically. Second thing, we know that she makes reference to pretty much the same verbiage as Oswin in the Asylum of the Daleks, where she mentions souffles, and at the very end, right before she dies, she says, "Run, you clever boy, and remember," or "remember me." Yeah. All we know for sure is that the Doctor concluded at the very end that this is exactly the same girl, Oswin and Clara. And so we see him going back into the TARDIS at the very end, getting excited, having that hope again. He's trying to look for this girl named Clara, who, by the way, afterwards you see Clara standing right next to her tombstone, and you don't know what's going on. So I'm really excited. I like how the writers wrote it to where it hooks you in the end. I like those cliffhangers. I like those things where they present questions that you really want to ask. You don't want to have an episode where it presents more questions and it gets more confusing. It's good for an episode to have questions at the very end, but basically questions like what happens next. It's like a teaser, and I like that about this episode. So let's talk about the villains. We have Dr. Simeon, who from a child we see at the beginning that he was very disturbed, or he was very secluded. He was an outcast, or he just didn't want to socialize with other kids. He was a little bit different, and we see from his parents saying that he's a very troubled boy, or he's a damaged boy, and all of a sudden this being, or the Snowman, starts talking to him. So we know that he grows up into this Dr. Simeon who basically kills people by means of snowmen, but we'll get to that in a minute. And there's this great intelligence. If you guys don't know the history of Doctor Who, search Doctor Who, the second Doctor, and his encounters with the Great Intelligence, because this isn't the first time that we hear about the Great Intelligence. I've seen other reviews of this episode, and I see a lot of people talking about the actor playing as Dr. Simeon is basically wasted in this character. I don't know too much about that, but all I know is that he has the same facial expression the whole time. Nothing really changes. His dialogue is very minimalistic, and what confused me is that the Great Intelligence was supposed to be fueled by his memories, but when the Doctor took care of that, the Great Intelligence still was able to be on its own. So that was kind of confusing. Another thing that was confusing is that when he first encounters Vastra, he knew that she was a girl, but he wasn't surprised that she was an alien, or she had green skin. I don't know, maybe he's seen that many times before, but I don't know. I would freak out when I would unveil somebody and they'd have like green alien lizard skin. I don't know. The Snowmen, I think, was a little bit silly. I know that Doctor Who has a lot of villains and a lot of characters, and very creative ones too. Now, but as far as the Snowmen goes, they were a little bit cheesy. At the very beginning, the first encounter with the Snowmen was when Dr. Simeon tricked the workers, or the homeless people. I'm not quite sure who they were though, but all you see is the men screaming when the Snowmen with sharp teeth growled at them, and obviously they made it to where the men died. So obviously the Snowmen were able to kill these men, but they didn't show anything. And then every other encounter of the Snowmen basically is them growling and not really moving. They're basically the most movement is them growling and them growing a little bit, not that much. I don't know about you, but I would like an alien or a villain to actually do something instead of just growling. It'd be kind of redundant after the first few times. Overall, I think the villain concept was a little bit too lazy for me. I think it feels like the story was basically made up. They had the concept of Clara and the situation with the doctor being bitter and going back to his old self, but they also needed a villain, and I think they just tacked it on. That's how I feel. It feels like it's very lazy, and like it almost feels like it was just last minute, and they just had to put something in there. They felt more like fillers than actual villains. As far as Doctor's friends go, I think they were great. They were a very good supplement to developing the Doctor's character. I think if you remove Strax and you remove Vestra and Jenny, you'll have a poor representation of how the Doctor portrays his bitterness or his seclusion to the world. Other than the shots and the lighting and also his clothes, I think the friends basically told us the story of how upset and how broken the Doctor really is. So let's talk about the story. I think the story was a little loose in a lot of ends to where it presented a lot of questions. You have to remember that this is a Christmas episode, so it's sort of meant to be isolated from the main story, even though there are a lot of factors into, you know, that ties everything together. But you have the situation with the Doctor working on his bitter heart and trying to come back into the world and going back to his normal state of mind. Then you have Clara, which is a big question mark and just draws people in, which is exciting. But then you have Dr. Simeon and the Snowmen, or the Great Intelligence. All of that put together, I don't think that somebody who's watching Doctor Who would want to invest that much time into learning about another concept with the enemy or the villain and character development. It's just too much for somebody to focus on. It needs to be, I think if it was just on Clara and the Doctor and maybe an old enemy or somebody that we're very familiar with, like the Daleks, or you know, somebody that you don't have to learn more about. You can just there could be like just another story tied into that, not a whole different character. Granted, like I said, the Great Intelligence goes way back with the second Doctor. Also, something else that I don't get is how Clara was so drawn and so compelled to follow the Doctor. I understand that this could be this could tie into something in the future or in the future episodes, but I don't understand how this girl who just meets the Doctor drops what she's doing while she's at work and jumps on a cab and basically follows the Doctor. I mean, do people do that? I mean, no. I like how they portrayed Vestra in the beginning, where she's on the phone and all you can see is her chin, and you can tell it's her by her voice and the way she talks to the Doctor. But what I don't understand is, how does she know? I don't know, did the Doctor call her? How does she know what happened with Clara and the Doctor? Was she there? Did she have some sort of psychic link? I'm not getting that. So what is up with the poor character transitions in this episode? First we have Clara, who was in the cab and the Doctor said Merry Christmas and then walked away, having her go. But as soon as the cab left, she was right there. It's like they teleported her outside of the cab, like she was never even put in the cab. And so the cab goes and then she starts following where the Doctor is. Second thing, when we have the Ice Governess coming into a room where, you know, it's pretty much surrounded. There's only one exit, and we had Clara and the two kids in one of the corners, and all they did was move forward, and then all of a sudden they're outside the room. What happened? What happened there? Did they teleport as well? How did they get past the? I don't get that. Meh. So let's talk about the single word response. I think it was utterly dumb. I don't like it. I think it was unnecessary, and I think the only reason why they implemented that is to allow Clara to conclude to the word pond so that the Doctor would respond, because you know that he probably wouldn't have responded to anything else but pond. However, I think they thought of the concept first of her saying pond and kind of worked around that. Oh, you could just imagine the writers trying to figure this out. I say, sir, I think we need Clara to say pond, because that would be a great tie-in to the Doctor's situation with the ponds. I just think that the word pond was really random for Clara to say. Granted, it was important to the Doctor, but as far as Clara goes, I would have said snow, or scared, or help, or something else besides pond, because pond is like, it was so random, and I don't know, it didn't fit well. I think it was a really unnecessary thing. I think they tried too hard, to be honest. I really like the Doctor's response to Pond. If you see that he's wearing glasses, those are actually glasses that Amy wore when they were reading the book in the park in the last episode where we see the ponds. And I think it was a really great tie-in to where, you know, he thought of the word ponds, then he took his glasses out and looked at them. I think that was amazing. One very interesting scene that I absolutely loved was the whole Sherlock Holmes bit. Granted, Dr. Simeon says that, you know, is a very fictional character, but I like how when the Doctor comes in, he's all dressed up with the Sherlock hat, and if you hear the music, it's almost a variation of BBC's Sherlock. You know how the Doctor encounters different historical figures like Winston Churchill, Hitler, Vincent van Gogh? I think it'd be really cool for him to go to Sherlock Holmes' era and actually meet him as, you know, the character himself, and I think that would be so amazing. One thing that I observed that the writers did a great job in is by allowing the Doctor to basically summarize the plot, the enemy plot, and how it came to be. I think when the Doctor came in as Sherlock Holmes, he was deducting and he was analyzing, and he basically told the story of what's going on with the great intelligence, and I thought that was amazing. You couldn't get that kind of storytelling if you tried with narration or with storytelling. If you actually acted out, if you had to explain it in a different way, it would probably be like a 2-hour thing, or you couldn't fit anything into one episode. So I think it was perfect that the Doctor was able to analyze it, basically narrating in his own way what the plot was. I think one of the best scenes ever is when Clara, towards the end, walks into the TARDIS for the very first time, and it has that sequence where they're outside and all of a sudden, you know, they go into this whole massive room. You know, it has the new console, which is amazing. I love how the console, the theme is very clean and it's very simple, and I like it. It almost is a reminiscence of some of the older themes of the TARDIS back in the day. But I like how it just a one quick transition. There was no cut, it was just outside, and all of a sudden, you know, she's inside, and it was amazing. All the lights came on, and whoo, best scene ever. What I don't get is that the Doctor opened up so fast and so quick that he gave Clara a key right then and there. The first time she walks into the TARDIS, she gets a key. And I know that some of the older companions got their keys long before, maybe a couple episodes long, but the first time she walks into the TARDIS, she gets a key. And I don't know, I just think that, you know, getting the key for the TARDIS is a very special and very big deal. And the fact that she got it the first time she walks into the TARDIS, she only met the Doctor yesterday, according to the story, and she got the key. And I don't know, I just think that it was very cheapened, but you can understand, I guess, that the Doctor was very hurt and very closed up, and so when he finally opened up, he was willing to trust again. He was willing to give it all again. So maybe that's what that was, I don't know. So overall, I think it was a great episode. I think that there was a lot of loose ends that the writers could have done better about, and, you know, leaving the viewer a lot more questions than they came is a little bad, considering that is, number one, it's a Christmas special, and number two, your episodes are supposed to reveal things. And I understand that there's cliffhangers, but a lot of the storytelling and a lot of the writing of the story is a little bit, I don't know, on the lazy side or last minute side, to where there's a lot of loose ends. But I enjoyed it as a viewer, as a Whovian, as a fan of Doctor Who. I absolutely enjoyed it. I think the characters, the story, and the suspense of wanting to know more about what's going to happen next outweighs the shortcomings of this episode. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed my review. But if you guys have any questions about Doctor Who or anything at all, make sure you leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/adaveable. You can also email me, applicabledave@gmail.com. But also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to see more videos of this. I like to do more reviews and having more chats. I also want to interact with you guys because I love Doctor Who and I'd like to talk more Doctor Who. So if you guys want to chat with me, let me know and we'll go from there. Alright guys, I'll catch you at the next video. Bye. What is this? A grenade? Look at that, eh? It says keep calm. I'm the doctor.